Hey guys, in this video I've got a really fun shop update as well as a cymbal unboxing, so let's dive into it now. So back when I started diving into the world of cymbals in 2018, I started getting on Instagram and seeing who was out there doing this, and there were very few people doing it, but one of the guys doing it is a guy named Nick Marguerite, who went by Nicky Moon Cymbals. He goes by Nicky Moon Cymbals, and Nick was a big inspiration for me as I got started, as I was, trying out cymbal modifications and hammering and trying out lathing, all of that kind of stuff. I would go online and I would see his posts and they would inspire me. And so Nick and I eventually formed a friendship and we would see each other at the trade shows, and he's a stellar human being and his cymbals are fantastic. He's one of the best out there. I've told people literally behind the scenes that Nick, to me, has one of the most refined palettes and refined techniques of any cymbalsmith that I know of. And it was really it was sad to see when he announced that he was closing the doors on Nicky Moon Cymbals. Probably not forever, but at least for the time being, he was moving in a different direction with his life and his career. And he reached out to me and made a proposition to me, which I will talk about later on in the video. But before we get to that point, I want to talk about the box I have that's sitting next to me, because I have always wanted to own a Nicky Moon cymbal, and I bought one recently. It's here. I've actually played it before because it was at the Chicago Drum Show in 2023. And it was one that I remembered playing and going, wow, this is a really incredible cymbal. And lo and behold, I started looking online to see Nicky Moon cymbals that were available, if there were going to be any available after he announced that he was closing his shop. And I found this one at the great drum shop Maxwell's in Chicago, and I picked it up. So it's here. We're going to do a cymbal unboxing and a live reaction to that. And then I'll get on to the exciting shop update. All right, here it is. We are going to do this unboxing. This is the second unboxing that I've done of another cymbalsmith's work. It's kind of a low-key dream of mine to own a cymbal from all of my favorite independent makers because, like I've said in other videos, we're all friends and we're all buddies. We talk to each other, we share ideas. We go back and forth on techniques, and we hang out when we do the trade shows. So we're competition, but very, very friendly competition. So open this guy up. Nice and packed very well. Thank you, Maxwell's Drum Shop. And see, cymbals can always be interesting when you play them in person, especially in a room, a big trade show room. It's always interesting to actually get them in person and see, do they live up to what they were when you play them in that live, reverberant, crazy room with 200 drum sets blaring all at the same time. So, all right, there it is. Beautiful as ever. It's got that awesome green logo. No idea why he chose to do the green, but I dig it. It's sick. This cymbal has got, ooh, that's a tall profile. That's a taller profile than I remember. Dang. All right. So it's a 22-inch. It weighs 2,443 grams, which, I mean, that is a killer weight, I think, for a cymbal that's 22 inches. And the taller profile means it'll have a little bit higher of a pitch. So yeah, this is going to be a really interesting cymbal to check out. Let's throw it on the kit and I will do a live reaction. I'm going to start out with playing it with a Modern Jazz 4, which is kind of my favorite stick. It's maple, it's got a barrel tip. And then I'll do some other tips, like a round tip, and then this tip that really gives me a super articulate sound as well. And we'll see what happens. Here we go. Yeah, that tip's different. All right, so first take, I love it. I'm a big fan of it. When I first looked at the side view, I could see that it billows out near the edge and it kind of flattens off as it gets to the top, which can be an issue if this area in the center is not properly balanced from a tension, stiffness, looseness standpoint, because you can have all these hums and honks and craziness going on there, but it doesn't have anything popping out in the middle that's ugly, and anything that is there is just feeding the overall vibe of the cymbal. So it's a really fantastic, well-made, extremely well-made cymbal, and I love it. It's got kind of like a bright crispiness to the top end, which, you know, tall profile cymbals, I've talked about this in other videos, tall profile cymbals can have, they can lose their sibilance, which is kind of that sound, the sprinkly, sparkly, high-end frequencies. It can kind of lose that. They get almost blanketed over, and you almost hear the sound like I'm covering my mouth and talking. It's a little bit muddy and mid-rangey, but this one doesn't have any of that. It's got this beautiful sibilance. It's got this beautiful sparkly high-end stuff, but because it's tall, it also has this kind of round roar to it and kind of dragon's breath complexity. It's like, it's a little angry, but it's also sweet. It's sour and sweet. It's combinations of things, which is like, to me, that's the mark of a good cymbals. Can you hear different things depending on what you pay attention to? Do you hear nice high end that can cut? Do you hear low growliness that's inviting to play? Do you have a nice sense of articulation with the stick definition, but do you also have this nice billowy crash that feels interesting and inviting to play? I can get that thing to open up at super low volumes. But then I can also dig in with the stick, and that stick definition stays on top, even with a round tip, which is kind of awesome. Overall, this is a wonderful, amazing, dynamic cymbal. I'm going to love it for many years to come, and it's going to stay in my collection. And this is really like, this whole video is an homage to Nick, and an homage to a friend of mine, a guy who has helped me just via doing what he does and posting about it so that I can see his process. He's been a good friend. He's been a guy that I've always been inspired by when I play his cymbals at the drum shows and the drum shops, and he will be missed in the independent cymbal smithing world. Which gets to the last point in this video, which is my shop update. Nick called me up when he had announced, or right before he had announced, he called me up and he said, "Hey man, I want to offer you some of my gear, some of my tools, some of my machines. I'm looking to get rid of this stuff fast because he's moving in a different direction. He's got another job lined up, and he had to get out of his shop fast. So I got back from the Chicago Drum Show, and I had a company head up to Pennsylvania. I had them load up Nick's shop, and I had them come drop it off at my shop. So my workspace is a total wreck right now, but there's some very cool pieces in there that I'm super excited to share about. So we're going to transition over to the phone, and I'm going to do a little phone walkthrough of the new shop, and we'll talk about some cool things that are coming up in the future. So here we go. Let's do it. All right, here's the shop. It's a total and utter wreck. There are things everywhere, stuff everywhere, and let's just dive in now. So the piece de resistance is the big boy here. This is a tire hammer. The way that it works is it has this foot pedal. If I press this foot pedal, it leans this motor with this metal cylinder up into the tire here, and that's spinning obviously, so that when it hits the tire, it spins the tire, which has this entire attachment here on the tire, so that as it spins, it's taking this 60-pound piece, lifting it and dropping it, lifting it and dropping it. And if I press the foot pedal down all the way and get it going fast, it's going to go super fast and super hard, and way too hard for bronze. So I'm going to have to learn the technique on how to use the foot pedal in a way that gives me the exact RPMs of strikes and the exact force of strikes. So it's going to take a good bit of skill to learn this machine. I've only hammered on this piece right here, the steel piece. And this is going to be part of a new stack that we're coming out with for stack ring percussion. It needs this machine in order to make it. I'm super excited about that as a little side note. But yeah, so this machine is super hefty. It weighs about 1,200 pounds. And I can't really use it yet fully because it's not bolted into the concrete. And just making that cymbal there took like 2 minutes to do that, and the entire thing walked forward about a whole foot. So it needs to be bolted into the concrete, but the problem with that is it's such a powerful machine that if I just bolted it into this cement floor in the shop, it would crack the floor, the foundation, and the crack would continue on. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to cut a new foundation, so a square cut, jackhammer out the middle part. Then I'm going to have to pour in a new concrete with rebar, and that concrete is going to have to be lined with some kind of high density rubber or foam to isolate it. Then once that dries and cures, I can get this hammer, put it on the new foundation, and epoxy, use like epoxy bolts and different things to bolt this thing into the concrete. It's going to make it a lot quieter because when this thing turns on, it shakes the whole shop. It's very loud. It's really an insane piece of gear. Really amazing how well designed this is. It's a Clay Thomas tire hammer, or Clay Spencer, I believe. And really a fantastic machine. It's going to last forever. This was the big thing I wanted to get from Nick when he reached out. And this is the thing that was used, at least in part, to make that cymbal I just showed you. And this brings up a really good point that I'll just dive into really fast. There's all these perceptions out there of the difference between handmade and machine-made cymbals, and a handmade cymbal is always better. And I get why people think that. I tended to think that way. Just when I got into it, it's like with a hand-formed cymbal entirely, like this one is right here, totally hand-formed with a hand-formed bell. I have the utmost control, but I also have this inconsistency because I'm a human and I can't perfectly replicate my strikes exactly where I want them to be. There's this imperfection that gets imbued into the metal, which makes it vibey. It's why old Ks have the aura that they have. It's why Spizzichinos have the aura that they have. They're totally handmade, handcrafted by a person. And that's amazing. I have that kind of purist mentality that if I could, I would just make cymbals one at a time and make them all by hand. But the problem with that is I have a body, and that body has joints, and that body has muscles and ligaments, and those things get very, very strained by the process of hand hammering. And as you can see, this is all mods. This is the batch of new cymbals I'm working on. I work on tons of cymbals. I'm constantly hammering, and I have issues with my hands. I got issues with my joints. This thumb used to click until I was able to kind of get some more strength in my hand. It still has some pain in it. My shoulder has pain. And if I don't make a change in my business, at least somewhat, I'm going to be in real trouble in 5 to 10 years. And if I kind of go at the pace I'm going now, I'll be in a lot of trouble. So implementing a machine like this and some other machines I'm about to purchase later this summer and later this year is going to help me get to a place where I can have the longevity to keep making cymbals as long as possible. And I can make cymbals that sound just as good as my originals using the machine. There's always going to be hand hammering that goes into every cymbal that I make, especially the Timothy Roberts brand. But I have this dream of actually having a whole other line of cymbals that comes in at a slightly lower price point from my Timothy Roberts brand that can be a little bit more accessible, and I can make more of them. I can get them in shops across the country. My cymbals are in, a handful of shops right now, but I would love to have them in more. And having machines like this is the only way to do it. The other way to do it, which I haven't really talked about this much, is I actually have an apprentice. And he's been working with me for about 2 years. Fantastic guy by the name of Isaac Brown. You'll be hearing more about him. Him and I are going on a very special trip that I'll just tease right now in about a month and a half, or a month really. So that you'll see more of Isaac. You'll see Isaac very soon on the channel. But he's been working with me for a couple years. He's been bass shaping some of the cymbals, doing some bass work on the mods, and then I come in and I do the final work. But he's getting to the point where he's skilled enough where I can actually take him through an entire modification, and he can do the whole thing really, really well. So I've got an apprentice. We're getting this machine. We got this machine. We're going to install it and start using it. So that's the main deal. On a separate note, I also got Nick's lathe here, his main lathe. It requires 220 volts, a 220 volt outlet, which I only have one outlet back there for my main lathe. So I'm going to have to get 2 more outlets installed for this guy, and then one for the tire hammer. He also sold me the cement mixer, the jackhammer, and the saw that I'm going to need to install this thing. He sold me this guy, which is a furnace that I can use to anneal the metal. So if a blank gets old and hard, I can anneal it and quench it and reset the metal back to its softer, more malleable state. He sold me these cymbal trees that I'll be using for trade shows. So yeah, that's basically the shop update. There's a lot of fun things coming. I got exciting announcements, trips that we're going to be going on. You're going to start seeing a little bit more of my apprentice Isaac. We're going to be going on a very cool trip. I told you about this, but a very cool trip in about a month. I don't know when this thing is going to be posted, but by the time it's posted, we might be on our trip. You'll definitely see a video of that coming. So this is a shop update on one hand, and on the other hand, it's an homage to my friend Nick, who has some incredible pieces out there. If you have the chance to get yourself a Nicky Moon cymbal, please do. He also did a bunch of modifications as well, and he's a great guy, wonderful craftsman, and I wish him all the best on his next endeavor. And I suspect he'll be back in some way, shape, or form. And he's not putting up the hammers for the last time. He'll be making more cymbals. At least I hope so. So thank you guys for watching. You can hit the subscribe button and like it if you like it. Hit the bell if you want notifications, all of that fun stuff. Keep an eye out for the next video. My name is Timothy Roberts. Thanks for watching, and big thanks to Nicky Moon Custom Cymbals.